Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Hello, everybody. It's Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe joining you for another episode of Mavs Moneyballs After Dark. We are recording at 9 p.m. here on Tuesday, the 21st of February. We've taken a multi-day hiatus, almost 5 days, according to when I last posted something, primarily because it's All-Star break and primarily because Josh and I needed a break. And then just lastly, because I didn't, if something interesting would have happened at All-Star game, I think we would have probably hopped on. The media sessions, which we'll talk about here maybe briefly, were pretty interesting, but not. It's kind of the choice as it was kind of it's a little bit of an editorial choice from me as editor of the Mavs Moneyball to where I don't know how to cover Kyrie. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know how to cover it because every time he talks, he makes news. And I don't, he had the biggest scrum at All-Star Weekend by far. And there's just, everything he says is interesting without also being, it gets into areas of stuff that like, I just don't want to talk about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, because another part of why it's so hard to talk about, and maybe the main thing, is because, let's be honest, you say anything about Kyrie and you're gonna hear from it from one end of the spectrum or the other. You're gonna hear from it from the people that think everything he says is correct and he's a victim of circumstance, and then you're gonna get the other side of it where even if you take maybe a somewhat softer approach, you're gonna get people that are like, hey, this guy's a fucker, like, what are you doing? So like, you're gonna upset people when you talk about Kyrie. It's just,
and I just really wasn't in the mood for it. Not with no basketball. Now
right.
that what that does allow is a bit of an easy segue into the game, where Kyrie Irving, as a starter for Team LeBron, he was one of the first players LeBron chose. Shared a big hug up on stage.
Oh, yeah.
It became an ESPN story to a degree. Kyrie Irving played probably the best statistical basketball game from of any Maverick ever to play in the All-Star game. He scored 32 points. That's the most by a Maverick ever. 15 assists, and then 5 or 6 rebounds. Like, it's an All-Star game. So there's only a certain amount to take away from it. And I think we should sort of talk about the game as a whole, but it was that part of it was like actually really interesting. Like, watching Kyrie be kind of an alpha in a game filled with guys that either didn't want to play or were just kind of futzing around was pretty fun. I enjoyed that element of the All-Star game. What did you think?
Yeah, we talked about this. We've been talking about this for a while. Like, Dirk scored 22 in that 2010 All-Star or 2011 All-Star game. I can't remember which year it was. The one that was in Dallas. And he only scored 22 because it was in Dallas, and they actually played him in the fourth quarter and gave him shots. Otherwise, Dirk has never had a big All-Star game because
he did have the cool
he didn't
moment.
try. He's had cool moments, but his game is, mid-range 2s and 3s.
He never got hot.
Yeah.
He only got hot in
the
send-off game.
Yeah.
And that was neat. But it's just it's not.
He had to share the floor with Tim Duncan and Shaq and Kevin Garnett.
Yeah.
Like the West was crazy back then. So
that's true.
There was also that. So, and then with Luka, his game isn't particularly fit for it. So like we've kind of talked about, like All-Star games for Mavericks fans aren't really much other than like with Dirk, it was cool because Dirk was like our indie rock star that we felt like no one heard of, and like to see him on the floor next to Duncan and Shaq and Kobe and all these greats was like validation of like, hey, this is actually like one of the greatest NBA players ever, especially in his prime when there was a lot of contention around his career and stuff like that. So that was always nice. With Luka, it's getting used to him being popular because the Mavericks have never had like a really popular player. Like Dirk's popular in a sense, but Luka's like an international star. It's just it's difficult. Dirk never won. Dirk was never voted in as a starter. So
right. He wasn't one of the most popular players on the planet. Luka is.
No. So we have so that's been maybe kind of interesting to think about. But like seeing Kyrie and seeing him score point, like, it was just, we don't see that. We just don't see that in people with Mavericks uniforms. And I think it kind of was hard because he's only been a Maverick for a week. So it was like, wait, he broke the record. And you kind of have to remember, we traded for him. He's a Maverick. Like he might only be on the team for a week, but it still counts. So that's also like, it was like another like wake up call that this guy's like on the team. And I mean, not that we were like denying it, but just mentally thinking about the Mavericks, it's just different now. But I'm with you. He tried pretty hard. I appreciated his effort. He was like getting up and down the floor. Like, of course, no one's asking for these guys to play 110%, but like, I kind of like what he did. Like if the rest of the guys on the floor can at least do what he did, which was like, at least like run around with some purpose, I think that's probably the most you can ask for. And of course, watching him in contrast to Luka, who his brain was already in Mexico, it was like a very stark contrast to like what these guys think of the game. And that became quite the subject online.
Well,
Sunday night and Monday morning.
It's probably good we didn't record the night of, because I think you and I are like, we are pretty grossed out at what Luka decided to do that game. Barely ran past half court, showed just every bit of disdain about the game possible Luka really had out there. And I understand that he's tired. I understand he wants to go on vacation. But he also like he gives a lot of lip service to it being an honor and all that sort of stuff. And then to play like that, to play with that little energy, because he might have been, I'm not sure if this is fair, but he might have been the most lethargic player between the two teams.
I don't even know if that's a debate.
Yeah.
And, I mean, how many plays where he wasn't even cross half court? Like you didn't even see him on your television screen.
Yeah, he wasn't in the frame. He basically ran 3-point line to 3-point line at best. He threw one pass like bomb to Jokic, and Jokic wasn't paying attention. Nearly hit him in the head. That was pretty funny. He had a pick and roll with Joel Embiid that was pretty funny. And he played some grab ass on the bench with Kyrie that, and after the fact, was actually very amusing to watch. And I don't. It's been a big discussion. Like the passion or lack of passion about the All-Star game has come out in a big way the last several days, where Ben Golliver, who has his own podcast, he's a Washington Post writer, used to be at SI. Basically, he's been a kind of a staunch defender of like player, just basically defending the players in all aspects for years. And even he went off on like a 90-minute rant today on his show where he was just like, this was awful. Like, this is awful. And if the league shouldn't do it, if this is how these guys are going to approach it. And because he described it as a basketball trade show. And I've been thinking about that. And Luka played a part in it. He wasn't the only one. I mean, LeBron stopped at halftime.
Giannis didn't do much either.
Steph Curry didn't show up. So it's like, I get it. I'm trying not to but understanding that this is a Mavericks podcast. And I have watched the Mavericks for 20 plus years. And there's something for me as a fan to want, I want my favorite player to shine on a bright stage surrounded by his peers. Now he does it in games that count. So we've seen him perform. Okay. So it's not, That's not what I mean. It's just like there's been this clip that's gone around the last couple of days of Kobe Bryant talking about the All-Star game, about how fans want to see the coolest pickup game on earth. Not a bunch of dunks, guys playing hard and making stuff happen. And that's what I wanted to see. And you know what? Unfortunately, I just think we may never get that. I think if Luka's going to turn in that kind of effort, though, they should find a way so that he doesn't even have to go. It's kind of embarrassing to watch.
Yeah, and like people, of course, reading too much into it, and like I barely, I kind of hinted at it online, but I wanted to talk about it more on the podcast because broaching this topic on Twitter is
well, in the night of, because the night of, everybody was just like, well, he should, this is stupid. Why do you care about this? And it's like, why do I care about the thing that I care about? Why do I care about
like we're all watching it? Why do we want it to be bad? Shouldn't we want it to be good if we're gonna watch it? Like, yes. If the answer is like he shouldn't try, it doesn't matter. He shouldn't care. It's an exhibition. Don't
eat Arby's.
Not to worry about it. Then play 5 minutes. Don't start. Like, then I'm totally cool with him not going. Like, he shouldn't go then. Like, I'm totally, hey, if he doesn't want to play and the NBA's like, hey, it's cool, you don't have to go, I'll be like, all right, fine. Like, that's cool.
Yep.
Just get to what you need to get to. And it became like kind of a larger conversation that I thought about, because it's like, on one hand, there's a middle ground where you have to be like, obviously we don't want these guys going crazy in an exhibition game, but you have to do more than run baseline to 3-point line to 3-point line. Like, there's a middle ground.
I mean, Jason Tatum left the game and he scored 55 points. And then after the game, though, he was like, well, the most important thing is that nobody got hurt. It's just like, you can't play basketball that way, even if it's an exhibition.
And then the other hand of it, though, is all these guys get hurt way more often than the previous generations. And I don't know how many times I've shared that Baxter Holmes article that he did for ESPN in 2019. That's like, these guys entering the league the last 5 to 10 years
are broken by the time they get to the league.
Yeah, compared, you think about Michael Jordan played baseball like in high school. Like, he played, and he didn't play these 10 game in a day AAU tournaments that these guys do. Like, it's a different era. Like, everyone's like, oh, well, these guys played 82 games in the 80s and they were fine. It's like, yeah, because when they were 10 years old, they weren't playing in tournaments and traveling across the country. It's just different. And they were playing other sports. Dirk played handball and tennis before he played basketball. Like, like this is, it makes me mad, because it's like, unless you're like, this is science. And like, that piece was very well reported and sourced. And it's like, I don't know how you're arguing this. Like, it's just substantially, the era that these guys are in now it's just different. Like, I don't care. It's different. So yeah, that's part of it. Like, if these guys felt better about their bodies at this point in the season because they're not being ground to dust before they even get into the league, maybe that changes things. But that's like the eat Arby's scenario, because that's like, that Pandora's box is open and is never closing. Like, I don't think there's nothing they can change. The NBA has no power over what these guys do before they get into the league. So it's kind of like it's a shitty situation, and they probably need to find some solutions in between. Like you said, they can figure it out, and maybe, but it's just tough because I'm not.
Well, here's a real wild one. How about don't do it 3/4 of the way through the season?
Yeah.
Like, there's
you do it at the actual halfway point.
I suppose the thing I hate about this the most is this is the first time I've really felt old man yells at clouds since watching basketball. And what was odd is that there were so many people who agreed with me, where I think like this sort of felt like a tipping point between, like Kyrie gave a bunch of quotes, and one of the things he talked about, which made news, was this like how it's dehumanizing some of what is expected of players relative to how hard they play and how much they prepare their bodies. And I had some extensive conversations with different people around the league that cover the league about that, because the language frustrated me, because it's basketball. But one thing that was pointed out to me that I think is very interesting is that it is the teams more than the players who want this injury stuff hidden for competitive advantage. It is the league that is forcing teams to open up their kind of injury books for gambling purposes, because gambling is a big revenue stream. And so these two things are all butting together. And I still think most players want to play as often as they can.
Yeah.
I still can't. I think there's a few guys who just,
there's always exceptions to everything, but
This is advertiser content brought to you by Frito-Lay.
Hello, I'm Chip Murphy, here to get you ready for the big tournament. Tonight we'll break down who will be cutting. Cut! What are you two doing?
Sorry, Chip. Prez here got his feathers ruffled when I told him Ruffles has 0 chance of winning the title.
And I was letting Dip know that she is not taking into account Ruffles' iconic ridges.
Guys, it's March. We have to start talking about the tournament.
We are. It is the 2023 Frito-Lay Snack It.
We're talking about big-time matchups between Cheetos, Smart Food, Lay's, Sun Chips, and more.
Just head to the Frito-Lay Snack Bracket and vote for your favorite chip, pretzel, or dip for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks.
This sounds great. Keep up the good work.
Just go to fritolaysnackit.sbnation.com. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends 4/3/2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for 1 bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnackit.sbnation.com.
It's just been one of these things the last several days where it's like basketball's played differently. JJ Redick made an argument about how like the league is more physical now, and it really rankled some older folks that I talk hoops with, like guys that are a little older than me in their 40s. And it's like, well, the 80s. And it's like, look, the way you centers didn't defend the perimeter in 1983. Okay. Guys didn't expect to cover this much floor length. So there's all these like hip and core injuries and things. It's like guys are covering more ground. Like we know this. It is sports science.
There's data. They track how many miles these guys run every game.
And so it's like it traps me in this weird old man yells at cloud situation where I'm very frustrated by what I'm watching while also understanding why. It's just elements of this season, I think, for you and I, and Silver gave a long press conference that like had him, he was taking hits. He did not have a good press conference because the league the league is not in bad place, but it's not in a great place. It's not. Like Kevin Durant got up and talked about how trade requests are great for the league. No, they're not. No, they're not. It's bad. You should want players and you should want like fans and there should be energy around teams as well as players. It's I don't know. I'm kind of off on a sideways rant here. It's just this All-Star weekend is
it's always the time where you kind of can do a state of the union state of the league, because it's one of the few times Silver gets up and talks. It's when you're talking to the players, you're not talking about a game, so you can ask them pretty much anything. So more broader topics get brought. It always happens around this weekend, and it's weird. And yeah, I'm kind of with you. It's like an unstoppable force, an immovable object, because it's like the league isn't getting slower and these guys aren't getting less athletic.
Yeah.
Like it's only trending to faster, harder, stronger, whatever. And on the other end of the spectrum, the league still wants to be this 82 game behemoth that sells a bunch of ad money and gets a bunch of ticket revenue. And it's like guys, if it's like both arrows are pointing up and towards each other and they're eventually going to crash, and neither side wants to acknowledge it in a way that's going to fix things. Because like you can't, like, if you want the league to be this fast and these players to be this athletic and do all this, yeah, you could do some things that reduces the load management, reduces stars sitting out games. I mean, you could play less games, but that's like non-negotiable because neither the players nor the owners want to lose money. And it's like, okay, well then now what do you do? And like everything kind of comes back to that. We don't want to lose money. And it's like, well, for the good of the game, there's eventually going to need to be a step back and like be like, okay, look, this might hurt for the first 2 or 3 years, but this will be better for the long run. And I feel like the league and the players are just so temporarily, they're just so short-sighted right now. And it's the same.
I mean, that they're always short-sighted.
Yeah, it's like this league that's supposed to be the most hip and advanced and in tune with like social media and stuff they're a joke when it comes to watching, allowing people to watch their team the way they want to watch them. And again, it's short-sightedness. It's because they wanted to. It's like I'll just sign this contract in 2015 with Bally or whatever the Fox Sports, the regional sports networks, even though like it's right in front of you, streaming is coming, it's coming to a head, and there's trends and how people are watching television now that's different than the previous 10 years. And it's like, but there's money now. And I'm just like,
well, I also think what I also think we're finding out collectively as a basketball fan base is that we don't actually like parity. The league has fought for parity in a variation for years, because in football, parity rules, because you get to week 14 and you still have everybody alive. We're at game 60-ish, give or take, and the basketball feels drudgery. It's difficult because there's this big mire of teams. Now, we'll see some separation the next, but it's just everybody's talking about, oh, this is the most competitive we've been in a while, and meaning the league as a whole. And it's like, maybe that's true, but everybody I talk with has been like, this has been just, there's no momentum. There's no like real interesting storylines. It's jumping on to the next, which is one of those things that we have a little bit of a harder time with from a narrative point of view.
And it's also the difference between playoff basketball and regular season basketball it's the widest that gap I feel like it's ever been, where it's like you just can't trust, like winning it. Like you think about the NFL, I know it's stupid maybe to compare the NFL because the NBA just can't get there, because the NFL plays 16 times and the NBA will never reach a ratio that's similar enough to make the regular season games matter as much. But like, how much in the NFL is like you can like take away so much from one game that's like, okay, this is how our season's going, this is how good our team is. And how many moments do you get in the NBA where you can say that? Because it's like, oh, well, this other team had like 3 guys hurt, so this win didn't really matter. Or this other team was on a 3rd and 4 nights, so really that win didn't, or, this loss doesn't count. Like basically from after the first week, like all these games have all these qualifiers. It's like, oh, well, this wasn't really a good win, or this wasn't actually a bad loss. And it's like, you can never figure out who's good and who's bad other than it's like, who's healthiest. And, that's basically what the regular season comes down to. And then you get to the playoffs and it's like, oh, this team is not as good as I thought they were.
Sure.
Or this team's better than I thought they were. What happened in the regular season? Well, they got hurt, or they couldn't, it's just the regular season is such a grind. It's hard to take things away from a single game.
Oh, well, that's what's, we've inadvertently turned into kind of old man that yells at cloud, but no, it's fine, because we don't do this very often. We genuinely like basketball, and like the state of the league is one where we're just at this point where, even though we got, one of the marquee players, one of the most popular players in the league, that is what Kyrie Irving is. Like, there's not a question about that. Shout out to our analytics at Mavs Moneyball. But it should be kind of a more and we're going to have more basketball to talk about, but that kind of allows us an easy pivot to something that I think is going to be worth kind of considering the rest of the way. I had you aggregate a story today from ESPN's Tim Bontemps that basically the gist of the story was, wow, look at LeBron selecting Kyrie, giving him a big hug, and then publicly praising him in a really effusive, almost uncomfortable manner, in a post-game quote where he's like, I'm really proud of the man he's become. And it's like, guy, 65 days ago, he was embroiled in a like anti-Semitism issue. What are we doing, LeBron? But and it's like, so it becomes this story. And one of the things that I think is worth at least briefly touching on is, because ESPN can't do anything different, they're going to talk about the future, because they're not that interested in covering the basketball. And I wanted to sort of just tee you up for your thoughts since you wrote on it.
Yeah, I think it sucks, because there's a lot of cool things that people could talk about right now with Kyrie on the Mavs, basketball wise. And me and you, we both, you definitely more than me, but I've actually taken the All-Star break. I've listened to some more, like, I'll listen to some Ringer and some Low Post, and I listened a little bit more since there's no Mavs games. And every time, like, the Kyrie stuff's like, Zach Lowe had to do like an extra podcast, because he was like, I realized I've done like 3 podcasts on Kyrie and I didn't talk about his fit in Dallas basketball wise in any of them. And I was like, yeah, dude, like that's kind of how it feels across the league right now. Is it's just no one wants to talk about what this guy's going to what this guy looks like on the court because everyone's just so predetermined to get him to Los Angeles, which is, again, big major market. I mean, ESPN's headquarters.
It feels like
they've got like a second
wag-a-dog
headquarters
story.
there. It is.
I'm not one of these guys because, like, I understand, like, we know what gets clicks. I could have written on shit all weekend, but I decided not to. Number one, because it doesn't matter for us. It doesn't make you and me any more money. But two, I don't like covering it. But ESPN knows where their bread is buttered. I am friends with Tim Bontemps, and my reading that story was so confusing because it's just like, I guess it's confusing because we all know it. But it feels like them trying to make it a story where it's like, yeah, LeBron and Kyrie, LeBron's going to pursue Kyrie Irving. Everybody, let's just get that out of the way. Like, we know this.
Yeah, it's not like they're making something up.
They're
true.
not. It's just, it feels like an emphasis on a thing that doesn't have, its timeline is July, not February. So can we please talk about the basketball? That's where my head is. And ESPN, frankly, can't do that. Not right now. I don't know why, because I guess, you insert Lakers into something and you just get more clicks. It is true. So I just wanted to kind of put out there into the void that there's going to be a lot of this. We're going to be obligated to talk about it. But Kyrie asked that we not ask him these questions, we being the media. I think that will mostly be honored by the Dallas media for two reasons. Number one, these guys don't really want to they don't want to piss him off yet. We don't have a lot, like the only combative media in Dallas is like Cowboys media. The Mavericks media, there's too many games. These guys are around each other too much. There's, Tim McMahon doesn't really, he's probably the biggest, guy who tends to be antagonistic. And even he, there's not a lot of value in antagonizing Kyrie right now because he's asked for something. And because it doesn't matter right now, I sort of think Kyrie's right.
Yeah, he is.
Let's just not talk about it. Like we wanted to. And so
especially because there's nothing they can do about it because they can only offer him the 2-year, like, it's not like they can give him the contract that he wants right now. They can't give it to him until the summer. So
that's right.
What are we talking about?
Oh, goodness gracious. So well, I just wanted to sort of get that out of the way. You and I will still touch on it as it comes up because it will come up again. I just, my plea, and I may friggin' send Mark a message to this effect is, please don't go on TV and make promises that you don't feel interested in cashing. Okay. Don't tell like, that's my main beef. Like anyway.
Yeah, we can already see the doomsday scenario this summer where it's like, I don't want to put bad juju in the air, but we could be going 2 consecutive summers where the Mavericks lose their second best player.
You could argue it would be their set, like, particularly because we were heading this way before the Kyrie trade with Christian Wood, where it would almost be like 2 years in a row they would lose 3 players that were. It's too funny.
Yeah,
a friend of mine that knows that I don't really look forward to covering Kyrie just because of the non-basketball stuff actually said to me, this would be Kirk's hilarious doomsday scenario in the sense of if Kyrie were to walk and sign with the Lakers, you would I would not have to cover Kyrie anymore, and B, I could excoriate the Mavericks front office for trading 2 wings and 2 kind of functional basketball players and a first round pick for a guy that walked after 25 games.
Yeah.
Which
and we like to talk about that, but you want the team to be good.
I do.
And you don't want to have that conversation.
Right. Like them re-signing Kyrie Irving is a collective win for everyone involved. I'm just going to get that out of the way right now. He's the best possible player that they could get. It's fine. There's things that could come down the road with Kyrie, and he telegraphed that this weekend where he's like, well, what do you mean? When did it become bad for me to do what's best for me? Which it's not. It's just you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. Like, you get criticism if you're going to walk from a team. Like, I don't have to be like, thanks for the memories, Kyrie. Like, that's not how this works. Okay, so that allows us kind of a soft pivot over the last few minutes of this podcast here to kind of look ahead. The Mavericks have 20-ish games left in the regular season, and they have, by one account, Positive Residual, which is like a tracking service for NBA stuff, is down, and like usually would be able to see some of the factors that are involved in strength of schedule. But the Mavericks basically have the 3rd easiest schedule the rest of the way. And Tim Calishaw wrote a column for the Dallas Morning News that I've been thinking about all day that basically said, like, the Mavericks have to do well now. Like this is the time for them to excel. And they haven't won a game yet with Luka and Kyrie. And they play the Spurs Thursday, then the Lakers. Like they have a path to like go on a tear. And I'm looking forward to it and think that they will. But if they don't, that then means this team that they decided to really become star heavy with, trading 2 players for 1 for Kyrie, they just don't have the back end juice if things don't go well. And I don't know. I still think they will, because I think certain teams are going to start packing it up.
Yeah, I mean, San Antonio's lost like 14 in a row. I don't remember. Like they're awful. They're going to win Thursday. I mean, if they lose Thursday, come to All-Star break. Like I don't even want to entertain that scenario. Like I'm going to deactivate Twitter. We're gonna lock down the site. We're gonna moderate. Like we're gonna turn off comment sections. Like that's just that can't happen. But yeah, they play 6 in a row to start the post All-Star break. They've been on a February and the end of January was just hellacious in terms of the amount of road games. So they're a significantly better team at home. They play for those 6 games that start after the All-Star break are all at home, and it's Spurs, Lakers, Pacers, 76ers, Suns, Jazz. And, only 2 games really scare you, Sixers and Suns, because there's possibility Durant might be back by that March 5th game because he's getting closer. But, you're not scared of the Spurs. Now, the Lakers are better now. I don't think they're going to be the cakewalk, like you mark them up as a win like they were. Like, honestly, before they made those trades, they were like in the Houston, San Antonio, Detroit range of like, that's a schedule win. Like that roster was such a mess. But just because everything good happens to the Lakers, even when they have the worst process in the league, their roster is significantly better now. So we'll have to see what happens. They play the Lakers twice in the next month. So, those might not be the easy wins that we thought they were 3 weeks ago.
But
we'll see.
They're bellwether for me. Like there's a lot, like we're going to, over the course of this season, I would argue we've not learned very much up until the Kyrie trade, because this team, we knew that they lacked in areas. Now, I don't know if the Mavericks knew that. Injuries happened, etc. But if this team has what it takes to make a run, we're going to learn that. And I for one am like interested in this. There's a way too much talk about whether Luka and Kyrie can fit together. Frankly, there's some nostalgia going on about LeBron and Kyrie back in their heydays when they played together, where there was a lot of my turn, your turn. I've talked to 2 or 3 people that have done deep dives back into those series to double check it. And you know what? It was my turn, your turn, and it kicked ass. They scored a lot of points. Was it the most visually pleasing basketball? Not all the time, but they scored a ton. And that's what the Mavericks have done. So what really they have to go about figuring out is, how do we close this defensive hole? How do we become the 15th best defense and not the 24th or whatever they are? Right.
Right. And that only happened, Maxey maybe is going to be back maybe during this homestand. I don't know. I think they said toward the end of February was his target, so we're getting closer. That's the $1 million question, because they've given up like an average of like 64 points per game in the paint in their last 3 losses, and there's no help coming there. Like Justin Holiday will give you some minutes and maybe be a little better than what they've been.
Well, see, that's
the perimeter, but.
I think that's where the Luka criticism is actually fair, because going into All-Star break, Luka looked worn out.
Yeah, he was one of the worst defenders on the team in those last 3
games. So if he just plays a little bit better, how much does that solve?
A lot.
To me, it solves a lot.
Yeah, because he's big. Like he's not. Yeah. Like he can take up space.
He's a functional defender. He really
is. We've seen it before. So that's another thing. Is it's not like we're wistful or hoping for something that's never happened. Like we've seen him do it. So
I'm still very bullish at the moment. I think this team is going to be okay. I think it's going to be very weird. I think we're not going to get any I hope they go on a run, but I think we're going to get a lot of like working out the problems. I'm still tired. I'm glad, it's Tuesday. They don't play till Thursday night. And then the way the schedule falls, they actually have a really nice run of games. Like they play 1 more game after 7:30 that has the after 7:30 start time. They play some afternoon games. Like for you and I, this is going to be pleasant. And I'm sure maybe some games might get flexed into different time spots. But Mavericks actually play a lot of national TV games already. So I'm not really sure how many more could be bumped up. So I don't know. I'm feeling I'm going to be glad to getting back to talking about the basketball. I found the narrative has pushed me off Twitter, which should be fucking impossible because I've lived here for 13, 14 years. But I'm just the kind of like the weird discussions where it's just like everybody wondering who's what on offense. It's like the offense is not the problem. It's the defense. And the defense might be just because they're 3 guys down. I don't know. I waffle moment to moment whether I'm bullish on the team or not. And I think like the discourse surrounding the team is just so odd.
Yeah, for sure. And then, we've got a new, like Porzingis brought his stands, Kyrie brings his. So it makes it tough to weed through stuff.
But I think the thing we've agreed upon is that like the Kyrie basketball is fucking cool.
Yeah, it fits. It works.
It really
works pretty well.
Yeah. It is. So we'll see. Yeah. Okay. Let's hope I didn't say anything too offensive in the podcast. I tried not to. We're going to I was going to do a live show after this, but I don't think I'm recording a show with Ben Golliver on Wednesday that I will try to have up by Wednesday night or I don't know. I'll have it up at some point. Maybe I'll do a live show Thursday night because the Mavericks play on Thursday. So, we'll be back with kind of our regular schedule of stuff. I can say now, just because, we mentioned this a few weeks ago, we are nearly positive we're getting to keep our RSS feed, which is what delivers the podcasts to you regularly through your podcast player, which means that you will not have to resubscribe to anything. We don't know where we're moving yet. We have some ideas, but we're in a much better place than we were, which was basically a month ago, where we were told that, hey, we're not going to be doing podcasts anymore. So Josh and I are like, on one hand, I think we were like, hey, if they shut us down, do we just quit?
Do we just go to bed?
Just ride off into the sunset. But then on the other hand, it's like, oh, well, we built something that we like here. So, and I will, I've talked about this a little bit. I've done less volume of shows. I like doing the Moneyball minutes. I think you would like doing the Moneyball minutes, just to kind of talk about an issue of the day along with some of the stories that are out there about the Mavs. But if once we figure out what's next, maybe I'll kick some of that stuff back up. I want to do some more interviews with people, just like talking shop with people that are kind of outside in the Mavs realm. So we'll see what we have going here. We'll also be kicking stuff back up at Mavs Moneyball. We didn't really do too much the last couple of days. I just wanted to give everybody a break unless they felt like writing. Meta wrote another wonderful piece. There's just some great, we have some interesting Mavs thinkers out there. Our site is so diverse in opinion and thought, and I really like it because we argue, and I think it's so much fun to actually argue about basketball. It's nice. So you got anything before we head out?
Nah, I think I'm ready. At least, man, these 6 home games, 7:30, 2:30, 7:30, 6:30, noon, 7:30.
Like you might have to go to a game, Josh. No, I think I will. You. That'd be funny. Like, because everybody doesn't. It's been a couple of years since COVID stuff, but it's like you were a beat reporter. You were a beat guy. You went to games regularly and nearly killed yourself because you were working so hard. But it's just it's like it's so much work to go to games. But it's like a noon game, huh?
A noon game.
Is that
a noon home game? Yeah, that's cool.
I might even try to. Hell no, I can't. I was like looking at ticket prices. Woo-wee! The Kyrie effect is real, brother.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like $300 for 300 level seats.
Yeah, have fun trying to get tickets to the LA game or the Phoenix, especially if Durant plays in that Phoenix game. Oh my god, that's gonna be nuts for ticket prices.
All right, folks. Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe, Mavs Moneyball After Dark. Thank you for sticking with us. We're sorry we went for a few days without, but you know what? I'm sure you were glad to have a break of us. We'll be back on Thursday night. Check your feeds at some point on Wednesday for the interview with Ben Golliver. Looking forward to that one. Everyone have a great Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day you're listening to this one. Bye, guys.